Hey, ready to record our Spider-Man series review?
I mean, yeah, man, I'm ready. It's just, I don't know if I'm gonna have anything negative to say.
Seriously? Why?
Honestly, Bill, I love these movies. There's absolutely no other reason that I am saying these things. I mean, it's not as if Spider-Man beat the crap out of me, put me in the hospital, and threatened to do worse if I didn't say good things about his movies. That didn't happen.
You honestly have nothing negative to say.
I mean, it's not as if I find that the films were instrumental in popularizing the superhero genre, but that ultimately they don't stand the test of time and come off as cheesy by modern standards.
Ian?
Gentlemen, it's time once again to discuss things.
Hello everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. And today we're going to be discussing, well, Zazubar, what are we going to be discussing today?
Today, Ian, we are going to be discussing the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy from 2002 to 2007, before that crazy reboot stuff happened. So, I wanted to talk about this because it's somewhat timely. I know The Amazing Spider-Man has been out for almost 2 months now, but
Almost 2 months. Yeah, that's it.
yeah. And I still think it's kind of timely because there is a lot of debate and controversy going on right now of which one's the better Spider-Man, film or film series. Which one gets the character more right? Which one's more entertaining? Which one's more serious? Which one is, overall better? And I thought it'd be interesting to talk about it, and talk about the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy in particular, and review it, see what merits it has, what criticisms we can come up with, and in the end see if it is truly either better or not quite as good as what was done later with Amazing Spider-Man. So it's kind of why I wanted to do this.
Well, so the question becomes, are we going to be doing very much compare and contrast with Amazing Spider-Man, or are we just going to kind of let that film be its own thing and let our viewers make their own conclusions from there?
I think we should let them make their own conclusions. Like, I think we should give
our
thoughts.
Like, if it's absolutely necessary, we bring up something from Amazing, but for the most part, we won't really touch on Amazing all that much.
Right. Let's just try and review the Spider-Man trilogy on its own merits, and take a look at it as a film series and as a direct adaptation of the original of the comics. So that's what I want to kind of take a look at it as.
Okay. Well, as I said in my intro, the one serious point that was made in this,
True.
it's that this is my opinion of the Raimi trilogy. I loved it growing up, but, and here's the big but, while I respect the films for all that they did to popularize the superhero genre, because let's face it, if those movies hadn't made the money they did, we wouldn't have gotten many more superhero movies, because X-Men only did so much.
And
right?
Blade was limited.
Yeah, Blade was very limited because of the rating. If those movies had not made the money that they did, the superhero genre would still be on a rocky road, and we never would have gotten films like Batman Begins or The Dark Knight or Watchmen, or not to name all the DC movies or the Avengers.
Yeah.
We probably wouldn't have gotten those films, or if we did, it would have been much, farther out. So, like, while I respect it for that, looking at it now, removing the nostalgic factor, the films do not hold up when looking at them seriously, and they come off in parts, very important parts, as very cheesy and a little too over the top, and very, very tongue-in-cheek when it's not trying to be tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah, I do agree.
And you know that's okay. You can make a movie that's cheesy and a little funny, but the thing is, these movies aren't trying to be cheesy and a little funny for the wrong reason. It just kind of happened, it seemed, by sheer virtue of trying to write a script that sounded like a comic book, whereas you can tell that they weren't trying to sound like modern comic books. They were trying to sound like the past, the Stan Lee days. And,
Yeah.
Once again, I love Stan Lee, and I respect everything that he does, or he did and does for the industry, but he is not a good writer in terms of what he's able to bring to the table, plot development wise and character development wise. He's great at conception and inception of a character and dynamics between characters, but he's not really good on the delivery of that. And I think that the same faults can be attributed to the Spider-Man movies, where there are some very interesting concepts, but they kind of fall apart on execution.
Yeah, the big part for me is the dialogue. Oftentimes in these films, the dialogue borders on painful, particularly when Peter is speaking to Mary Jane. Now, part of it, I think, is acting and delivery, though not Tobey Maguire, really. I think it's more Kristen Dunst. But aside from that, the dialogue is not that well written. It's very, very, very cheesy, as you said. And the problem with that is that it works better on the page in a better way than it does on film, because in film you have to worry about delivery, and lines like that cannot really be delivered in a way that sounds, natural and organic and with some kind of passion behind them. Um, the scenes for me, I can't remember a specific line, that to exemplify, but the scenes for me that always embodied that were the scenes where it's Peter and Mary Jane speaking across the fence.
That's mostly in the first movie. There's that, like, it's a good scene still. I do like the scene where he talks about how much he loved her in the play when they were children. I mean, conceptually, that's a great scene, but the more you think about that scene, the more it falls apart, because it's not charming, it's creepy.
It's very, very creepy.
Like, who remembers a play from second grade?
Yeah. I mean, she barely remembers it.
Exactly, and that's the thing, is like, it's, if the delivery was different there, if he'd been saying it like he was, like he remembered it, and that he was embellishing it, like he was like, oh yeah, you remember you played you played Cinderella? Oh, you were great. You should have won an Oscar for that, I swear to God.
Yeah.
Cheers. Like, if he delivered it like that, whereas, obviously pulling her leg a little bit, saying, don't worry, you get better as you get older, or you get better as you get more experience.
Yeah, and that's a Spider-Man thing to do.
Yeah, exactly. If he'd made it the point that way, then it would have worked, and it would have been, you would have had the same emotions that you wanted the scene to deliver, but it would have been in a much more believable way, and not the Nolanistic. Like, I hate anytime I say believable when talking about a superhero movie, people harp on me and go, you just want everything to be like Nolan. No, there's believable from a suspension of disbelief standpoint. And
I don't care who's that. Here's the thing, it has to sound natural from the character.
Yeah, that's true. No, the point I'm making is not everything needs to be super grounded in the real world, but what people are doing and what people are saying, unless the world that you're in like allows for people to just be cartoon characters, or just completely not people, then they should still sound like real people
within the context of that universe.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, if you're in my favorite film of all time, Doctor Strangelove, yes, you can have a guy say that the Russians are planning to steal our precious bodily fluids. And it works, because it's this kooky world where, like that's the other line. Now, if I shoot this machine, you're going to have a lot of responsibility to the Coca-Cola company.
Yeah.
Like lines like that. It's so damn absurd, but it works because the universe is so damn absurd. I mean, there's a guy writing
because it's the war room.
Exactly. I mean, there's also a guy riding a nuclear missile. It's like there's no reality to this world, so it's okay for the characters not to be realistic in what they're saying. But there is reality to the world of the Raimi Spider-Man films. We're obviously meant to take some things seriously. Some things are supposed to be believable, particularly the interaction between the characters.
Yeah, and it doesn't work with Pete and MJ for me.
And it doesn't work with Pete and Aunt May to me. Like, especially the line I remember so well from the trailer and then from the movie is, "You're not Superman, you know." And it's just it fell apart because it's such a, you know, wink and a nod and what's supposed to be a, you know, touching scene, and it's you've got two things that are so completely different and they just completely clash on screen like that to me. And they're so juxtaposed. It seriously, it threw a hammer at my television set.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way about that line. It's almost too close. Like, you're almost like, oh, it's almost like a sitcom. Because that's where you expect the audience to go, oh.
Exactly.
It's not believable. It sounds way too cartoony, and it sounds way too obvious to not be a written line. You know what I mean?
I completely agree with you. So, and that definitely tracks. I think that's something. It loses it a little bit in the second movie.
I was just about to say.
The second movie is the masterpiece. The second movie is the one that does it the least. It still does it, but it does it the least. And then the third movie does it like crazy.
Yeah, it's almost like So here's the thing. I think Spider-Man 2 tried to be that believable and, you know, somewhat realistic look at Peter Parker as Spider-Man. It still had those cheesy elements, but it worked in a way, for the most part, where you could believe the characters to the point where you could buy what Raimi was selling with the themes. And in Spider-Man 3, it just doesn't. It tries to take the approach that Spider-Man 2 took, and then takes the same approach with the goofiness from the first movie, and it just does not work.
Could you I'm gonna play devil's advocate here, Bill. Can you give some examples of what you're talking about between the second and the third movie there?
Sure. For one thing, Otto Octavius versus Flint Marko. You take something as absurd, or not absurd, because it's theoretically possible, I suppose, or something as sci-fi as creating a cold fusion generator and having to use 4 mechanical cerebral operated arms to manipulate that experiment. Yeah, it's kind of unbelievable. It's a very comic book idea. Here's how it works. You buy Otto Octavius as a passionate, somewhat grounded, and extremely likable person, and it works in that belief. It makes the character very believable at the same time having those fantastical comic book elements, and it works in a way. Again, you could still make some criticisms there, but I think it works for the most part. And then you go to Flint Marko, and then you've got this guy who has been stealing his entire life and hasn't really done anything commendable. The only excuse he has is that he has a daughter who's been sick. And that's extremely, you know, the way he goes about it is extremely uncommendable unless we had more information about him in the past. And then he gets hit by a particle experiment. That's very unbelievable to me. And because we're not buying him as a grounded, likable protagonist, or not
Can I butt in real quick since you mentioned the particle experiment? I think that the funniest line in all of the like 5 to 6 minute episode of how it should have ended was the particle accelerator scene where they go, "Oh, the weight distribution's changed. Yeah, oh, it's probably just a bird. It'll fly out." And then the guy goes, "Wait. We're scientists. Let's stop the machine and go check before we mutate the crap out of something." Okay?
Yeah, I loved that. It was so cool.
It was absolutely perfect. Like, it goes, "Here's a plot hole, and here's a plot hole."
And then let's fix it and make the movie simpler.
Yeah, but go on. I'm sorry, I just had to point that out.
No, it's fine. Basically, my point with all this exemplification is that you buy you buy it, but Otto Octavius is a likable and believable character. Flint Marko is not. And the fantastical elements about Otto Octavius you didn't care and were somewhat believable. You don't have that with Flint Marko. That's my point. So it works in Spider-Man 2, and they try it again in Spider-Man 3, and it just doesn't work.
All right, and something that I feel like we should connect, because part of what didn't work in Spider-Man 2 with Otto Octavius is, before he even went crazy, why is he building a fusion reactor in the heart of New York City in the first place?
Good point.
And then why is he continuing to do it around New York City after the fact? Because I'm like, it's an experimental fusion reactor. That's not something you build around people. So they had that contrived reason to put it in the location of the film. And with, Flint Marko, you had a similar kind of contrivance, because they had to invent reasons for sand to just be around New York City, which is why you had, the most, spot on one was, of course, the truck full of sand randomly.
Yeah, that was fucking stupid.
So I feel like that those two examples that Bill and I just brought forth, or, well, 4 examples total. I don't know. You guys decide. You guys count. Will
we can't do math and make good points. Jesus Christ! What do you people expect from us?
Well, no, it's 2 sets of 2. Like, there's individually it's 4 examples, but there are 2 sets of 2 examples. So I don't know. Anyway,
who cares?
Anyway, the point I'm making is that while Spider-Man 3 definitely falls apart in some ways, it's obvious that the same contrivances were present in 2. And not necessarily the exact same contrivances, but very similar problems were present in 2.
Here's the thing, though, and I'm sure you were going to go into this, but just because I'm self-absorbed, I will make the point. It works in Spider-Man 2 because the characters are more likable.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you.
And it's less distracting. Like, I feel like in Spider-Man 3, because the characters are uncommendable, unlikable, and not interesting, or not interesting because we don't get enough information about them, the problems are much more noticeable and more difficult to give a pass.
Mm-hmm. I mean, especially with what's his face, Eddie Brock / Venom.
Eddie Brock, oh god.
Like, someone made the point to me when Dark Knight first came out that you don't get enough time with Two-Face, and that makes his character suffer. That makes his character development suffer, and makes it non-believable that he becomes Two-Face. And they said it's just like Brock, and it's just like Venom in Spider-Man 3. They totally rushed him into being the villain. But the thing is, and this is true of both movies, the thing is, it's much more believable in Dark Knight when you watch it again and you focus on Harvey.
Yeah.
Focus on his character instead of just being wrapped up in everything else that's going on. If you focus on his character, everything is much more believable and much more understandable for him to become Two-Face.
Yeah.
And if you focus on Brock, it's there to a lesser extent if you also buy the fact that this guy's kind of crazy. He's not like a nutcase, but he's definitely got a few wires loose.
But it's not... I hate to bring up the comics at this point because we're not talking about the comics yet, but the comics first of all, they focus on Eddie more before he becomes Venom as kind of a foil for Spider-Man. They don't do that in this film. They do that in one scene. And it's while we're sorry, what?
Which scene is it? Where
when he fakes the bank robber.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought.
That's the one plot element where, like, oh, Spider-Man ruined his life on one occasion. In the comics, it was a progression. And you got the sense that Eddie was crazy because he was making stuff up to make it Spider-Man's fault.
Mm-hmm.
In this, that's not the case. And
yeah, I mean, in this, Eddie is crazy in the sense that, the guy that's, like, stalking this girl, but he's never really... he's not gonna hurt her, so no one's doing anything about it, but he's obviously stalking her.
Sure. But it's almost not played up to be creepy. I mean, I feel like
it's
we're
played
supposed to
because
take
of the universe. Because of the universe, we're supposed to take him as comic relief until they need us to take him seriously.
And then it's like, that was the giveaway that he's crazy. Did you see what Peter was doing in the first movie?
Oh God.
How is he not crazy if we're going to consider Eddie crazy? So
Exactly.
it's kind of, well, here's the thing. Didn't the people who wrote who wrote Smallville, excuse me, it's very late at night and I'm fading. People who wrote Smallville, didn't they write the first Spider-Man movie?
I have no idea.
Well, I think
I
that it was some production crossing. There's a problem similar in Smallville to the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. We're supposed to accept that the protagonist can do questionable things and for us to not question them because he's a protagonist, but non-protagonist characters can do questionable things and we're supposed to find them antagonists for that.
Yeah, I that is present in the series, and it's in the Smallville series and in the Spider-Man series here, because they both have that. All right, I don't know if this is true for everybody. This might only be an experience in phenomenology that relates to me and the people that I went to middle school with. But when I went to middle school, everyone in there acted like they think people act in high school based on movies and television shows.
Mine was the same way.
Okay, good. So this is a wider area of phenomenology for at least Bill and I's generation. All right. The thing is, once you get to high school, everyone's sick of that shit. So then you get a much more natural progression and a very good social evolution.
Mm-hmm.
All right. But the movies, like the Spider-Man movie, and the Smallville series, did that thing where they took the most stereotypical elements of high school, like they were watching middle schoolers, to get what high school life is like.
You're right.
You're getting that copy of a copy.
Mm-hmm. And that makes it very unbelievable.
Exactly. It makes it just trash, and you just get tired of it, and it's regurgitated filth. And now, thank God, we're almost not, because it's getting a little bit ridiculous, but at least we're getting this renaissance of teenager movies and high school movies where we have believable teenagers now. Like, I mean, they're going a little too far on the, awkward, kind of strange side, like with Juno and 500 Days of Summer, stuff like that.
Sure, but it's still...
It's significantly more believable.
The people are still more like people.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not... It's not your typical average everyday high schooler. Not everyone's going to be able to relate to this, but you still get the impression that people like this could exist. Now, if you want, like, a very solid, very believable cast of teenagers, not in a show or a movie, but if you want very believable teenagers, I suggest reading the books of John Green, because he only focuses on teenagers and he does them brilliantly. But if you want it on film, I think the best movie for high schoolers I've seen is either Brick, or the best movies for high schoolers I've seen is Brick, The Chum Scrubber, and not Donnie Darko.
No.
Donnie Darko didn't do it. I'm trying, like, there's a third one. It's right on the tip of my tongue, but it's leaving my mind right now. So just I'm gonna say Brick and The Chum Scrubber. Two kind of underground movies. Brick is a really good mystery flick. It's got Joseph Gordon-Levitt in it, so check it out. But it's got a very good, high school thing, though it does involve gang violence. So there's that element to it, but I mean, a lot of our high schools had that.
My high school has that, so...
Yeah. That's just something to talk about. But to get back to the movie here, because even though we embrace the tangent on Sid Part 2's channel, we do like to somehow connect our points here.
Yeah.
To get back to the Spider-Man series, it's very obvious that the writers are very far away from high school. Like, they're copying the copy. They're recreating this stereotypical plutonic image of what high school is on screen, where it's the bully, it only takes a little shove, and all of a sudden the lunch tray and the locker, and like, it's just every scene,
and the chocolate pudding.
Yeah, every scene in that movie that takes place inside the high school or while they're in high school is so atypical of what you could imagine for a high schooler, and it just becomes...
They also all look like they're 25.
Yeah, that's a problem too. And not to defend the Joker blogs, but to totally defend the Joker blogs, one of the big criticisms they get is everybody in the series looks too young. And part of that's true, to an extent that's true. But the thing is, Hollywood has brainwashed you because it turns out that when you're 16, you don't look 26.
Yeah. Right?
And when you're 30, you might look 26 still.
True. Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean,
And I mean, there are exceptions on both sides of the fence, but I mean,
yeah, I
still.
mean, like, oh my God, my movie, the guy that's under the cupboard in the movie,
Yeah.
he's my age.
Not that you can tell.
Not that you can tell at all. Just to point that out. No, it's just that's the point I'm making is that age is deceptive because Hollywood just constantly casts 20 people in their late 20s as teenagers, and so when you see someone who actually could believably in real life tell you, oh no, actually I'm 35, I just look really young for my age, on screen as a 35-year-old, you're like, oh my God, get age appropriate actors. And it's like, okay, sorry.
And here's where we can bring in Amazing. Amazing made that work.
Amazing. Like, they were 26-year-olds, but they actually looked like teenagers more because of the body type. Like, that's the thing. A lot of the 26-year-olds they always used is they're built less like me, less like you, and more like my brother. Because, I mean, there are definitely teenagers that do look 26, but they tend to be the jockier guys, the people that definitely matured very early on into a much more, taller, much more muscular form. And that's the thing, is the people like you and I, as we get older, it's much easier to tell that we're older because we're gaining weight or gaining facial hair and stuff like that, so it's obvious that we're not teenagers anymore.
Right.
But they still look the same as they did in high school. It's just they happen to be 26. I'm sorry, that's a very confusing point.
It's okay. We embrace the tangents here.
No, it's not a tangent. It's just very confusing. I'm kind of like dancing on eggshells here because it's harder to explain.
But I can see your point as it makes these movies even less believable than they're trying to be.
Exactly. Yeah, that. I mean, and here's the interesting thing. Andrew Garfield in Amazing Spider-Man, and Tobey Maguire in the first Spider-Man movie are the exact same age when those movies were filmed.
Yeah. And
which is so surprising because they definitely don't look it. Garfield actually looks like a teenager.
Yeah.
Tobey Maguire looks like he's in his late 20s.
Definitely. Especially in that one of the early on scenes where he has his shirt off and we first see that he's all built now from after the spider bite. And I'm like, that's not how I look, I mean, is that supposed to be my role model? Am I supposed to be concerned? You know what I mean? It's like when I was a kid and I was thinking, oh, so I'm supposed to look like that when I'm 19, right?
Yeah, that's what I thought too when I was really young. It's like, okay, I'll look like these guys in these like these teenagers in Friday the 13th. When I get to be 19, I'll look like that. Nope.
Not even kind of. So yeah, I mean, it just hurts the believability. And the argument that Hollywood throws out more often is you can't find people that young who act, who can act, basically.
True. I
mean, really, I say, have you ever been to a high school?
No, I mean, like, you really want to use that? I can top that right now. 2 words. Harry Potter.
Right, exactly, I agree.
I mean, you had kids. Like, they never changed the cast on the movie. One person from the cast of that movie that was a character that was supposed to be in the other movies got removed. And that's because the guy got caught selling weed.
We're talking about Dumbledore, right?
No, not Dumbledore. The guy that played it was one of the guys that played Crabbe or Doyle.
Oh.
One of them the actor got caught selling weed, and so he was arrested, and he didn't get to be in like the last 2 or 3 movies.
Well, Dumbledore switched actors too.
Well, that's because he died, though.
Right. Okay. Shitty point. My bad. Dark humor, but this is Sid's channel.
Bill's
so
making light of a man's death. Our hearts go out to his family.
Yeah.
You can find Bill's house. For the
well, dude, I'm Godzilla, so I mean, you're gonna have to.
For the masses of Harry, and these are Harry Potter fans. Oh, here we go. Godzilla versus Magic. Magic wins because Godzilla is based on science. Oh, but to that point, Magic versus science. Magic always wins
because
by and large, and since Godzilla is based on nuclear radiation, he's therefore based on science. So Magic wins. So all the masses of Harry Potter fans that are mad at Bill for making jokes about the original actor to play Dumbledore, feel free to, use all your resources on the internet and go attack Bill for his horrid behavior.
Even though I had no idea the reasons, and therefore my ignorance makes me bad.
Well, just don't worry, Bill. You're completely safe because apparently magical people are retarded when it comes to human technology. Because I mean, no, seriously, if you watch the Harry Potter movies, at 11, you're taken out of elementary school, and then put in magic school, and all you learn is magic. So
and they write with quills.
Well, no, but so you have a bunch of 35 and 40-year-olds running around with an 11-year-old's understanding of the actual physics of how the world works. So
yeah.
So this is a significant problem because 11-year-olds don't always understand, the principles of motion. And sure, you can have a spell to stop that, but that's not always going to work.
And you have to hide it when you're in the Muggle world. So
yeah, and I'm just saying. So it's not going to help you. You're safe because they're not going to be able to find you because they're not going to figure out how to work technology.
Yes. Well, they could always find me at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. So. And I know that's a vast area to cover, but you can always take a submersible and spend a couple of years.
Anyway, just get a hold of James Cameron and.
Yeah. Oh, fuck yeah. So here's a funny thing. Since we embrace the tangents on your channel, here's a funny tangent. What happens after they get out of the wizarding school? What do they do for a living?
Well, a lot of them go to work for the government, and then others open up businesses and shops. From what we understand, because obviously they have to buy stuff from each other. Like Fred and George opened up a joke shop, which was awesome.
Sure.
So some of them open up businesses, some of them just raise families. Some of them can actually, for those that were born Muggles and actually kept up on how to live in the real world, they can actually go and get jobs and just use magic as a, useful thing if they wanted to, but I can't imagine why you'd want to do that.
I'm just imagining Harry Potter graduates from Hogwarts or whatever happens in the final film because I have not seen it yet. Although I do plan to. So you have Harry Potter graduates from Hogwarts and he gets a job as an accountant, and he's sitting in his cubicle with the lightning scar, and he's in a cheap one of those white button-up shirts and a black tie, and he's sitting at his computer. He can't get the damn thing to send an email or something. So does he just break out the Abracadabra on the computer and just
Avada Kedavra.
Yeah, just blow the fuck out of the fucking office and kill everyone? Is that the use that Hogwarts was attempting to get across? I mean, I'm a little lost here.
I don't know. Actually, I believe Harry became...
He becomes a lawyer.
No, I believe he becomes a dark wizard hunter. Because, I mean, I killed the greatest dark wizard ever. It's pretty good on a job application to me.
Dark wizard hunter. What's your resume?
No,
Kills who.
No, wait, that's the term for it. It's like aura, and it's it's wizard police. Kind.
It's kind of like the Men in Black of Harry Potter.
Kinda. I mean, they take care of, werewolves and monsters and stuff that are, threatening muggles and wizards alike. And dark wizards being the... Okay, anyway,
Margot will defend her. Sorry.
back to Spider-Man. No, wait, we have to find a way to connect this. All right, it's up to you because I'm gonna blame you for this tangent since this is your. But
Spider-Man in
you have to connect. You have to connect magical wizard police with Spider-Man. Go.
Bam. In the YouTube channel, it's just some random guy. In the Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows trailer spoof that he did with the Marvel DC characters, Spider-Man portrayed Harry Potter. Bam.
Okay.
I just totally blew your mind.
You did something, all right.
Ha
Blew something.
ha.
You blew something, man. Anyway, let's get back to Spider-Man. So we're talking about, we're talking about teenagers and we're talking about that, but most of these movies, from the middle of the first movie on through the third, they're not teenagers anymore. So
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
graduate in the first 45 minutes of the first movie, so.
so I mean, it's a good complaint, but it's we should move on
Yeah,
beyond.
since we're kind of talking about the entire trilogy, so um I kind of want to talk about well, we already kind of did, but the comic book aspect for a second. Let's talk about this kind of as an adaptation. How do you feel about Tobey Maguire as comic book Peter Parker?
I think he does. You got to keep in mind, I'm not a big Marvel guy. I've listed my reasons for why I don't read a lot of Marvel, and it's nothing against Marvel. It's that they write characters to be relatable, and I don't really care about relatable characters. I like characters as metaphors. All right. Um, I mean, obviously, your metaphor has to be relatable, otherwise, I can't continue to read him to a certain extent. But
So this is why the only Marvel book I'm reading right now is the Hulk.
yeah, I mean, so like what I'm saying is relatability is secondary to me to the power of the metaphor you're presenting. So I don't read a ton of Marvel because they write characters to be relatable, not characters to be metaphors. That being said, from what I've read, I don't feel that Peter Parker was very well portrayed because he's just there's that stereotype that he's always, whining and crying, but you shouldn't model toward the stereotype. You should model toward the ideal, the one that the people like. What's your like if I go up to a Spider-Man fan, I say, "What's your favorite quality of Peter Parker as a person?" The answer that I get the most consistently, or the answers that I get the most consistently, is the character that we should build. All right? Not the like what do you think of first when you think of comic book Peter Parker? And I shouldn't build a character based on that. And that's what I felt that they did, is they built it based on the stereotype of Peter Parker as opposed to what's genuinely liked about the character.
Interesting. I never personally had that though, because Peter Parker was always someone. Yes, I related with him, but he was always someone I always looked up to because, as a kid especially, I was a fan of the animated series. That's my favorite version of Spider-Man. I was a fan of the comics as well, but the animated series was that was my Spider-Man. And the thing about the animated series portrayal of Peter Parker, and it's very close to the comics.
I've seen the entire thing. Just to throw that in there, so whatever you say, I can actually comment on.
All right, good. Is that he's kind of like Superman if he was younger, and he's kind of realistically trying to build up as that kind of role model, but guess what? It's not that easy. And he solves his problems with sarcasm and ingenuity, but at the end of the day, he's always kind of going to be the loser in his real life because he at the end of the day he's always has to go back to being Peter Parker. Peter Parker's life kind of sucks, and whenever he makes it good, it gets taken away from him. Point in case the last season where with the reveal about Mary Jane.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I love that version of Peter Parker, and why the Tobey Maguire version disappoints me, because we get that to a point, except he doesn't have a lot of ingenuity, and the sarcasm that's there comes off as more fan service than part of the character, and that bugs me. Mm-hmm. And that's something that Andrew Garfield thankfully rectified.
Yeah, actually, that was my most like that was the reason I really like. That was one of the two reasons I really wanted to see the new Spider-Man, was because I finally wanted to see a funny Spider-Man on screen.
And we
'Cause
got him.
I never laughed at anything Tobey Maguire said. Like, no line of dialogue from Spider-Man that was supposed to be sarcasm in that movie, in any of those movies, ever made me laugh.
One did
Whereas,
for me.
hold on. Well, whereas
Sure.
Andrew Garfield's lines legitimately made me laugh. The
Yeah.
other reason I wanted to go see the new one was to see how they handled 3D first-person web slinging. That sounded cool.
I didn't see the film in 3D, so I can't comment on that.
It was an interesting dynamic and a good way to use the medium and actually say, see, here's why we're doing it in 3D. But this isn't about Amazing Spider-Man.
Indeed.
With the animated series, I do agree with you. He had that thing of, Peter Parker's life sucked, and it really did suck. Just every single time something started going his way, he had to give it up to be Spider-Man, and it was really painful. And this was a completely different series, but I think it exemplifies the point really well. I don't know if you ever watched the 3D MTV series.
I did. I was a big fan of it when it first came out.
Okay, I don't remember which episode, but Peter and Mary Jane agree to write down notes and tell each other things about themselves that they've never told anyone else. And Peter's having a really hard time coming up with something, and he's pacing back and forth trying to think of something to write. He goes, "Why can't I tell her anything interesting about myself? Like this." And it pans out, and he's upside down, pacing on, balcony of a building. It was really cool. And that obviously wasn't in the animated series, but I feel like the animated series communicated that same turmoil from Peter Parker really well.
Yes.
He couldn't show who he really was. And to go to Kill Bill, to connect to your point about Superman, in the film Kill Bill, Bill has a monologue in which he talks about Superman, and he says he likes Superman because when he puts on the cape and costume, he's the only one that's not pretending. He was born Superman. He's pretending when he becomes Clark Kent. And I feel like that's an interesting thing. It's really hard to try to be Superman like that. Like, that's what, Parker, you're right. Parker is trying to be like Superman in the animated series. It's really hard to try to be Superman because you're trying to be someone else, whereas Superman was trying to be us.
Isn't that funny though? And it's also the problem with that is that that's not true anymore in current continuity.
Oh, damn current continuity. I got 70 years of continuity, bitch.
No, you're right. You're right. You are right. That's a big theme in the first two Christopher Reeve films, and why those are potentially my two favorite versions of Superman.
Have you seen the Donner cut?
Yes, I love the Donner cut.
I really enjoyed that. I really want to see a fan edit of the first movie to fit with the Donner cut, because then I could watch that, Superman 2, the Donner cut, and then Superman Redeemed, and I could have a good, cohesive Superman movie marathon that doesn't fall apart at the seams. And if someone really can cut it together right, and I don't know if they can, Superman Returns, I'm sure you can get it in there if you do enough butchering of the plot.
Yeah, it'd be about a 5-minute movie.
I don't know. That movie had its moments. I think it had more than 5 minutes of them.
I gotta disagree. I really do not like Superman Returns. But anyway, and wouldn't it be funny if they released a cut of the first two Superman movies together and they called it Superman Redeemed?
No, actually, like, Superman Redeemed is a fan edit.
Oh!
And I'm one of the few people on the planet that seed it, and I seed it constantly. Like, let me pull up my uTorrent here, and I'll tell you how much I've seeded of that movie. Superman Redeemed is a fan edit of Superman 3 and 4, taking all the stupid out of both movies and creating one cohesive plot. And it doesn't take all the stupid, because unfortunately some of the stupid you have to have.
Yeah.
But it does its damnedest. Alright, hold on. Info. I've uploaded 880 gigabytes of that film.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and the file is 3.74 gigabytes. So someone do the math there.
And again, that's our viewer's job.
Yeah, I've been uploading for 39 weeks and 4 days. Just for anyone that wants to download it, because fan edits are notoriously hard to download. I'm a big supporter of fan edits. They're notoriously hard to download, and it's just that, especially when they're good. And Superman Redeemed shows you what editing can do for a movie. And guess what? Let's go back to Spider-Man 3. Here's something that really could have used editing.
Yeah. Yeah. I made a joke. Well, I made a joke personally. I do this series called the Godzilla Gang, and I was gonna make a joke in that show where one of the gang got their hands on a cut of Spider-Man 3 called Spider-Man 3: The Venom Cut, and it's only 25 minutes long. Where it's basically just the Venom story. And I was just like, that wouldn't be terrible. See, that movie does need that though.
Yeah, it does. It needs a fan edit.
It does desperately.
And the thing is, you can really get away with taking scenes from Amazing Spider-Man to me, because that was my major criticism of Amazing Spider-Man. Visually, it doesn't do a whole lot to distinguish itself from the other. So if you really want to, you can just rip action scenes out of it and put them in other Spider-Man movies.
No, you can, and that's one of the things that. Well, I don't want to get too much into Amazing, but I just want to say this one thing. That's one of the things that bugged me about it.
Me too.
It was too soon. Like, I was like, this does not look too different from Spider-Man 3.
All right. On that point, it was too soon. A lot of people were saying that, and as much as I agree with it, I understand why the studio did it, because you have to understand how Marvel's movie contracts are working right now. All right.
Yeah.
When the Marvel movies first started coming out, X-Men and Spider-Man, and then Daredevil 2. Not Daredevil 2, the number, Daredevil TOO, the version of the word that also means also.
Yes. Okay.
Damn it. Okay.
Get on. We don't need a fucking grammar lesson.
And also Daredevil. When Spider-Man came out, Marvel was selling the film rights of the characters to different studios under the same contract, that they are allowed to keep the film rights as long as they continue making these movies based with these characters in it every couple of years.
Yeah.
And then Marvel got bought by Disney, and that freaked everybody out. So, 2007 to 2012, that's 5 years. Is that every couple? Disney's got room to, move in. If they hadn't made a movie by 2012, Disney or Marvel would have had room to move in and take the property back. So, they were freaking out, and they rushed something to delivery, and the studio knew what was working. So they're like, just change the shit that's fucked up with this series. And so while I still hold it against the film that it doesn't do itself enough to distinguish itself visually, it's still a major problem. I understand why it happened, because this movie was more of an experiment than it was a work of art.
Yeah, no, definitely, and the editing is a big part of that.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the cutting.
Yeah, all right, but let's get off of Amazing.
Yeah. I just wanted to make that one point that I thought it was way too soon visually. But I want to talk about what do I want to talk about? I want to talk about more comic book adaptation wise. I've read articles before Amazing came out that people describing the Raimi films as basically the Spider-Man comics put on screen.
No.
Visually, do you agree with that? Not character-wise, visually, do you agree with that? I do not.
See, I remember being in the theater as a kid and thinking it looked a lot like the cartoon on screen. And with some characters, particularly J. Jonah Jameson, I have to agree with that.
Yeah.
like there, especially the web slinging scenes where he's going in between the cars and down the buildings, it looks a lot like the cartoon, and I think you'd be really hard to argue against that.
No, I'm
I,
not gonna.
the
I'm not even
character
gonna try.
designs, a lot of the character designs is Doc Ock and a lot of the others, obviously not the same. But
Yeah.
my point is, it looked so much like the cartoon to me when I was a kid. So it looked like the cartoon. Once again, I don't read the comics, so I can't really speak on that point.
All right.
So it's
Well,
up to you. Do you think that the cartoon visually captured the comics? If
oh,
so,
for sure.
okay, then if so, then I have to say that visually the Raimi films, if you believe, and I trust you, that the cartoon captured the comics, I believe that the Raimi films captured the visual look of the cartoon. So by extension, that they captured the visual look of the comics.
I have to disagree with you. I don't think I think that the films try to give a false sense of realism, and this is where I get into the Green Goblin and Doc Ock. The Green Goblin's costume is now infamous, um, and I can definitely see why. I mean, it's
He's a major exception, no lie. He was, yes, I mean,
ridiculously stupid.
Weird Al always has the trump card, the trump point on this, where you put the guy that looks scarier when he's out in the costume into the dumbest costume in the world. Yes, Green Goblin, obvious exception. I should have said that earlier. It's just I don't think of him because I ignore that costume.
Well, here's the thing. They tried to give it a false sense of realism in that, yeah, you wouldn't imagine someone realistically going out and putting on a costume that looks like that. Here's where the false sense of realism comes in. It's not actually a mutation like it is both in Ultimate and also in the comics. It's kind of sort of his face, but kind of sort of not, that it's a mask. And they kind of alternate depending on what you're reading. But they kind of say, oh, it's a mask, oh, it's his actual face. But here's the point. It doesn't. The films try to make it realistic because they try to make it look like it's something that it could actually exist in reality, and I don't like that because the films aren't that way. They're not realistic movies in any way, so
Agreed.
why pretend?
Agreed.
Doc Ock is a good reason for that as well. Why give him a trench coat? And now here's the counterpoint on that. I can't imagine this version of Doc Ock putting on the green jumpsuit. But at the same time, it again, it feels like a little bit of a false sense of realism to me, and I don't like that when the films aren't realistic.
Mm-hmm. Like, the thing is, Doc Ock could have been wearing scrubs for all I cared.
Yeah, and no, I agree. I'm just kind of,
I'm a, like, as someone that does cosplay, as someone that does, for those of you that are interested, guess who the costuming department, for the most part, of the Master Thief Studios production company's films are? Ian. 9 times out of 10 at least. 9 times out of 10 at least, it's me that comes up with the costume idea if we need like a unique costume, or Bobby and I work on it. But anyway, my point being is that I'm a big fan of subtle things to nod to a costume in films, as opposed to just going all out with it when we know it would look ridiculous. Now, at the same time, there are some things that you should just do because it's gonna just make more sense than to just nod to them. To go back to Amazing, what pissed me off about that movie is every time the lizard comes out, he's got the coat on, and then he immediately rips it off. Just leave the coat on. It looked fine. It made perfect sense.
Yeah, I agree.
But, and, Green Goblin didn't work at all. Doc Ock, at least the trench coat was kind of grayish, greenish, kind of.
And no, here's the thing. I'm not saying the trench coat is bad. I think it doesn't make any sense for that particular version of Doc Ock to put on a green jumpsuit. But I'm just saying that it feels like the production team is trying to make it look realistic when they're not spacing their movie in a realistic universe.
True.
So
at that point.
So I think that that's somewhat problematic, and it's almost like the film is trying to hide it. And guess what also has that problem? Smallville. So irony again. I mean, just look at
That's not
Clerks.
ironic at all. I'm sorry, that's one of my pet peeves is
All
when
right, sorry.
someone
It's
says
funny.
something's
It's
ironic.
funny. It's funny.
Like you know that song, Isn't It Ironic?
Yeah.
I fucking hate that song because literally nothing she says in that song is ironic.
I probably shouldn't have said this in front of the philosophy major.
Well, no, you know the song I'm talking about?
No, I have not heard it.
Okay, you know it. You know it by the chorus. It's like rain on your wedding day. It's a free ride
Okay, yeah.
when you've already paid. Yeah, that song. Literally nothing she says in that song is ironic. It's just a series of really annoying and or frustrating things. That does not make it ironic. Ironic is winning a trip to the top of the Empire State Building when you're afraid of heights.
Sure.
And that's, it's just, that pisses me off. Literally
Ironic
not.
is a doctor dying of a heart attack.
No.
A heart doctor dying of a heart attack.
Yes.
Okay, I should have been more specific. I apologize.
No, actually, here. Irony would be a cardiovascular surgeon eating a heart-shaped cookie and dying of a heart attack simultaneously. That is a terrific example of irony.
Irony is a shark researcher choking on shark fin soup.
Sure. Fair enough.
Okay. Well, let's get off this point. Let's go back to Spider-Man. Let's talk about Spider-Man 3 because this is the one that's most infamous in my mind with Venom. Why the fuck would you bother having the Venom face if he's going to have it peeled back the whole movie? Now, people will tell me it's because they couldn't have the budget to show it the whole time, but we have the budget to show Sandman as a giant sand creature for about 20 minutes. Is that what you're telling me?
And if that's the case, do it in practical.
Yeah, well, it probably wouldn't have looked as organic. Well, not as.
Well, no, do it in practical and add stuff in post.
Fine, sure. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, yeah, right.
No,
Here's the thing. Here's the thing that's stupid for me. It's almost like they're trying to make it more realistic in that they give him sharp teeth and claws.
Yeah, I agree. It's very stupid. It pissed me off when I'm watching it. Because here's the thing. Like I said, I've never been a huge Spider-Man fan, but I've always liked Venom. I always found Venom to be a cool character. Because he's, buff Spider-Man, so he's obviously going to be a pretty good foe.
Yeah.
And they pick frickin' Eric Foreman to play him.
I was dying when I saw Spider-Man 3 because I was like, why is Eric Foreman playing Venom? I was a big That 70s Show fan.
No, it's like you pick Eric Foreman to play him, so you take the guy that I've spent, the last, I don't know, not 8-9 years watching just be called a loser and a skinny guy and be told he's no threat at all. So you take
the epitome of nerd and cast him as the anti-nerd. I want to punch you in the face.
He's not buff at all. That bugged me so much. That would have been so interesting if when he'd seen, you take that scene where he sees Peter out with Gwen, you put that 30 to 40 minutes earlier. You extend the time frame of this movie, not the running time, the time that the movie takes place in, about 2 to 3 months, and you put Eddie Brock ridiculously, just exercising until he gets buff.
That works.
Then going into the church and asking God to help him kill Peter Parker, he was planning to go do it with his bare hands.
Yeah,
then
it's
he
great.
gets the Venom symbiote.
Well, after he finds out Peter Parker is Spider-Man.
Wait, he needs to find out at some point. You can even do the Bell thing still. That isn't terrible. It's convenient, but it's not horrendous.
Well, here's the thing. I feel like he would have to, if we were going to go that route, I feel like before he goes into the church, he would have to somehow find out Peter is Spider-Man because now he knows he can't do it with his bare hands. Because he's just a buff guy.
That'd be actually really good if he, is working out, and then he finds out that Peter is Spider-Man. So then he's like, "Oh crap, I'm not gonna be able to do enough," and then he turns to the church. That's
what I would do if I was directing the movie. So just to go back to my primary point with bringing up Venom, you bring it into a false sense of reality when you've got one of the dumbest, well, not dumb, but just out there ideas of having a black symbiote costume that goes on to Spider-Man, steals his powers, and gives them to someone else. Don't try and make that realistic because you're just fooling yourself and you're making the audience laugh at you by having Eric Foreman with sharp teeth and claws.
Mm-hmm. And the other argument that people made for the face was, well, you got the actor, and they don't want to have their face underneath the mask for, you know, the like best scenes in their best scenes in as the character. And I'm like, well, then they shouldn't be playing the character.
Yeah, if they don't want that, then they're not an actor.
I mean, like, you know, there's that whole thing. Well, these movies are having a hard time getting big names. Bullshit. One, you pay these people so much money. You think they're really gonna have a hard time getting big names? No. It's like, and it's not even about the money anymore. So many people are really into it. They really want to be in superhero movies now.
Yeah, it's just like everyone wants to be one of those costumes.
Yeah, it's not 1889. 1889. It's not 1989 where you have to, you know,
back in Gotham by Gaslight.
Yeah, it's not 1989 where you have to give Jack Nicholson merchandising rights to get him to appear in your movie. This is, you know, people just want to be in it because they know that everybody's going to see it.
Yeah.
And whether or not their face is on screen 90% of the movie, it's not going to matter because they're going to use that as a driving force to give that much better of a performance so that people remember their names. Case in point, V for Vendetta.
I was just about to bring that up. Perfect example.
That's it. I like case and point.
Seriously. I mean, brilliant performance. Never see his face. And then there's an awkward silence.
I don't know what else to say about this point. I guess we kind of have to move on. And just for those of you that are going to try to call me on it, I'm going to look up how to say his name because I can never remember how to pronounce it, and that's not my fault. But I do know
it's my vocal cords' fault.
No, I do know his name. Like, I have it in my head. I just cannot pronounce it.
I always get him mixed up with another guy. I know that sounds stupid, but that's just... Oh, it's Hugo Weaving. Okay. I always get him and John Malkovich mixed up for some reason. I don't know why.
No, I've never had that problem. No,
I know you probably haven't. It's a personal problem. I don't know why it is that way, because I think Hugo Weaving is awesome, but...
Hugo Weaving, absolutely incredible in that film. Amazing actor. And did he do a lot of his own... any of his own stunt work for that?
I believe so. Well, not that you can tell.
Yeah, not that you'd be able to tell, but that's the thing. Once you're given that challenge to, I have to give a memorable performance under the mask, you're doing so much more.
Yeah, Lou Ferrigno as the Hulk. Look what happened after that.
I don't know what else to really go into that. Like, you can... V for Vendetta shows that you can get a movie where you put a top actor under a mask the whole time, and you still get an amazing performance that is noteworthy.
And then people are going to remember your name because they're going to be commending you for how seamlessly you became that character.
Right. So that's the other big argument I've heard for why they kept doing the removable Venom mask.
That's also a stupid reason because then why are you an actor?
Exactly.
Become a fucking advertiser then if you want your face to be on everything. Exactly. I mean, the point of acting is becoming the character, not getting your name out there. Then you're just a walking advertising agency. So no matter what the argument is, it's stupid.
I resist language like that. I agree with the point that you're making, but could you use more eloquent language there?
Sure. It's you know, damn it, now you've put me in a spot. It's not commendable in any way.
Okay, thank you. Because I resist calling an argument stupid, because I do believe that there are stupid arguments, but I like to reserve the word for them.
Okay, all right. So it's not commendable in any way.
Yeah, there we go. All right. So I feel that covers the mask, because I do feel that it's not justified at all in the movie.
Especially since when it's on screen, it looks so good.
Yeah, it really did. It was awesome. He
And I
just
mean,
needed to be bigger.
yeah, well, they tried. I mean, I think they tried their best. I mean, it wasn't the fact that he was scrawny that was the problem. It was, one, his characterization was for the most part off, and that he was portrayed as kind of a loser. And Eddie Brock was always kind of a loser who didn't think he was a loser, and this one he's just kind of an all-around loser. And you didn't get any sense of, like, you know, self-indulgence with this particular version of Eddie Brock, in my opinion. Um, so I think that basically everything about him is off, except for the scene where he goes to the church, because I think for the most part that's well acted.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. That was well acted, if not a little like unexpected. Because
And again, that's just the problem.
really
He doesn't
did
have
come
enough
out of
screen time.
nowhere.
Yeah,
It
because again,
really did.
he didn't have enough screen time. And here's one funny criticism slash I wish they would have done this thing I have for Spider-Man 3. I would never, if making a Spider-Man film, put the new Green Goblin in the same movie as Venom, because the ways they attack Peter Parker are very similar, in that they attack him on a personal level.
Mm. See,
So,
that's the other thing that we've got to talk about is Hobgoblin.
or New Goblin.
Yeah, well, to me he was Hobgoblin.
That's what I thought he was going to be, because around the time Spider-Man 3 came out, they did an arc in Ultimate Spider-Man where Harry Osborn became the Hobgoblin.
That's
So
as far as I always knew. Hobgoblin and Harry Osborn were always the same person, because I remembered seeing that one episode of the animated series where it was revealed that Harry was the Hobgoblin for a while.
No, that's not what happens.
No, he was in the Hobgoblin costume for a little while. I swear to God, he was.
Are you thinking of Felicia Hardy's boyfriend?
I hope not, because
That's
God,
what.
I swear to God, someone blackmails Harry Osborn and says, "I will show you the location of your father," and makes him dress up as Hobgoblin.
You could be right. I don't know, but I don't remember that. I remember it being someone else, because I never remember Harry being any way connected to the Hobgoblin, because they never connected the Green Goblin with the Hobgoblin until they did that arc where they killed the Hobgoblin and the Green Goblin became more of Spider-Man's archenemy. And and very soon after that, Harry became the new Green Goblin. So I mean, Harry was always the new Green Goblin, never the Hobgoblin until Ultimate.
Yeah, well, like, see, that's the thing that never made any sense to me. Like, why? It's Goblin. Why are there two goblins that have nothing to do with each other?
No, I agree with that, but well, I think the Hobgoblin actually came first, and then the Green Goblin was a stronger version of him.
Still,
Yeah, well,
bad
yeah,
writing.
sure, why not?
This is why one cohesive continuity is not always a good thing, guys. Because it leads to, like, what the fuck? This doesn't really make sense.
Yeah. Well, I was always a bigger Green Goblin fan than I was a Hobgoblin fan. I know there are a lot of Spider-Man fans out there who are like, Hobgoblin was the original, so he's better. He was always very generic to me, and Green Goblin was always a lot more interesting, so I was always
I don't know.
more...
It freaks me out watching the animated series because it's obviously Mark Hamill voicing
Yep,
Goblin.
yep.
And it's just
yeah.
like, okay, so Joker got a costume and decided to fuck with Spider-Man.
And is also a lot more materialistic.
Yeah. Well, no, it's animated series Joker. He was very materialistic.
No, but not in an interesting way. It's just
True.
he's a crook.
True.
You know, it's not interesting, psychotic connections in any way. It's just kind of, I like to steal things because I want to be rich. So
definitely. All right. So anyway, let's talk about Harry as, what did they call him in this?
The new Goblin.
A new Goblin? I swear I heard the word proto somewhere.
No, that was the build up for the Amazing Spider-Man. There was supposed to be a villain in it called Proto Goblin.
Okay, well, anyway, like, it was like, for me at least, not even that I'm a huge Goblin fan, just for me at least, it was such a letdown because they built it up for 2 movies.
And the ending of Spider-Man 2, fucking epic. Nothing done with it.
And it's just, oh my god, like they built it up for 2 movies and they did it so well. Even
Yeah.
with the problems that the first movie had, they did this part of it so well that you're just like, oh my god, with your stupid James Franco. Like, James Franco is right up there with Nick Cage on one of those guys that can be an amazing actor or a terrible actor,
Yeah.
depending on what he's in.
Yeah.
Like, you get the feeling that you can really tell if you have a strong script by if you get this guy in your movie, is it going to be one of their good movies or bad movies?
Yeah, definitely, and that tells of this what leagues about the script. And that's of course where the weaknesses of Spider-Man 3 come in, because James Franco, I can never get a sense of who his character is supposed to be in Spider-Man 3. First 2 movies, I got a sense of his character. Third movie, it's the problem of we don't know when he actually has amnesia and when he doesn't.
Mm-hmm. Actually, can I point out an example of what bugged me the most about one thing that that character does in the movie?
Sure.
All right. You remember when he meets Peter in the pie shop?
Yes,
Coffee shop?
that's the thing. That's the scene I was thinking of.
Okay. Like he goes back and forth with the dialogue, and then Peter leaves, and he looks back before he crosses the street, and he sees Harry order another piece of pie or something, right?
And then the truck goes by and he's gone.
Yeah, then he crosses the street and the truck goes by and Harry's gone. That always just bugged the crap out of me because I'm
Did
like,
he become Batman?
No, like it just bugged me because the dude just ordered another piece of pie, and like that waitress is totally screwed now.
Yeah, it's fucking hysterical.
Like it's just like this dude's rich as shit, and he just like skipped on the check at this little hole in the wall restaurant. That always just like I always found that really fucked up.
Yeah,
Like,
it doesn't even look like a restaurant. It looks like a fucking coffee shop.
I know. I'm just like, damn, this dude's really evil. Like that's how you know.
If
Like,
they
all the
skip out on the
evil
check
things
at
he
a
does in
fucking
that
coffee
movie,
shop.
all the evil things he does, he totally like just completely screws over that poor waitress.
Yeah.
And that just always bugged the crap out of me. I'm like, and like he just ordered another piece of pie and then he runs out? The fuck, man? The fuck?
Here's what ruins the movie for me. It's not actually the movie. It's the novelization of the movie.
Really?
Yes. I've never had this before. Because I used to do this all the time when I was in middle school. I used to always read the novelizations of the movies because you kind of got more out of the movie if you read the novel because they went into more depth. I had this with the Iron Man novel. With Spider-Man 3, the first like couple chapters, excuse me, or the first couple scenes in the movie, and when Peter first meets Harry as the new Goblin, there is this moment that made me want to punch myself in the gut. When he looks up at Harry's stupid-ass costume and says, somehow that mask is recognizable, it's distinctly a goblin. I literally threw the book at the ground and said, how do you make that connection? He looks like a fucking snowboarder.
No, like you don't talk about the fucking mask. I mean, it's the fucking hoverboard and the fucking bombs coming out of the fucking hoverboard.
Yeah, it's not the fucking mask.
Duh. Like that's how you know it's a goblin because of the same fucking equipment.
Yeah, it's not the mask.
That's how you knew Batman was a member of the League of Shadows, because he had the spiky things that Christopher Nolan loves for some reason. Like, was that you and Milan I talked to that about?
Maybe, I just forget.
Christopher Nolan must really love Batman's gauntlets, because when you think about it, in the first 2 movies, those are the sole things that help him defeat the villain.
True.
Because in Begins, he breaks the sword with them, and then in Dark Knight, he shoots Joker with them. So those are the 2 things that, like, save the day. Those are his, fly around the world thing.
Yeah, true.
So, I don't know. I guess Nolan just really likes it. Yeah, it's just, I always found that interesting. He just must really like those things.
He's got like 50 models of him in his house. Like he removes a mirror in his house and he goes in. It's kind of like the Goblin's lair, but it's a bunch of bat gauntlets. Exactly.
And I actually like one of the comic books, Resurrection of Ra's al Ghul, actually cemented that connection between the bat gauntlets and the League of Shadows.
Isn't
where
it called the League
Batman's-
of Assassins in the comics?
Well, yeah, League of Assassins in the comics, but I always like the term League of Shadows better. 'Cause,
No, yeah, it's more original.
yeah, it does just sound cooler. But anyway, like Batman loses parts of his armor while he's hanging out with Talia, and she
Just
gives
chilling.
him what?
Just chilling.
Yeah, well, no, they're on a mission together. They're just just chilling on the beach.
Just chilling out in the head of the demon's lair.
But anyway, like he's on a mission with Talia and he loses part of his armor, gauntlets included. And so Talia says, "Oh, I got a family heirloom. Here you go." And she gives him gauntlets and they got the bat things on it. So I really like that. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
And guess who cemented that connection?
Oh, nice.
No, guess.
Christopher Nolan.
Actually, no, wait. Here it is. Here's your nerd question of the day.
Oh.
For the nerd points, who cemented the connection between the Nolan films and the comics, given the League of Shadows or League of Assassins gauntlets and Batman's gauntlets?
We're talking writers, right?
Yep.
Given that it's Ra's al Ghul. Fuck.
And it's in the story, The Resurrection of Ra's al Ghul.
Which I have not read. I've read a lot of Ra's al Ghul stuff. But no, I haven't read that. Just because I'm an idiot, I'm gonna say Denny O'Neil.
Grant Morrison.
Oh, I was thinking him too. Shit.
Dude, it's a connection between universes. That should have been the dead giveaway.
Yeah,
Between
I should have.
universes that have nothing to do with each other.
I should have guessed that. I failed. I apologize.
Actually, that can't be the nerd question. Do you have a nerd question related to Spider-Man?
Do I have a nerd question related to Spider-Man?
Yep.
Oh, I'd have to think of one. Oh, here's one. I'll think of one. Let's just keep talking. Are we done talking about the Raimi trilogy, or?
No. It's just like I keep meaning to make that a recurring segment.
Well, I keep forgetting that you wanted to do that. I'd have to think of one.
I got one. If you're cool with me asking another question.
Sure, go ahead. I'll think of one in the meantime.
Okay, in the final episode of the Spider-Man animated series that ran on Fox Television when we were kids.
Okay, which I've seen.
All right, in the final episode, or in the final like story arc, let me say. Spider-Man works with a number of other Spider-Men, one of whom does not have powers. Why does that final Spider-Man not have powers?
Because he plays them on TV.
Very good. All right, that'll do it. You win the nerd points that you lost from missing the Batman question. That is irrelevant this week since this is a Spider-Man discussion.
Oh,
Right,
I have a nerdy or Spider-Man question.
All right, since there are only two of us, sure, shoot.
What was one of the first recurring villains from the past Spider-Man who appeared in the series Spider-Girl?
Like I said, no comic reading for Spider-Man in my background, so I'm gonna take complete shot in the dark here.
You're not gonna get it, but okay, go ahead.
I'm gonna say Green Goblin.
Not the first one, but he's in there. The first one was actually Kane from the Clone Saga.
Damn. Oh well.
Well, I should come up since you only know animated series. Let me come up with one for that. Okay, who does not join the second reorganization of the Sinister Six in the cartoon series? Because it forms twice. Once and then twice. It forms again and one of them is not there.
Is it Hobgoblin?
No, it's Chameleon.
Damn. All right. I was so sure it was Hobgoblin.
Well, Hobgoblin was never in the Sinister Six because him and Wilson Fisk didn't get along.
Right. Okay. Never mind.
You lost your nerd points.
Yeah, I lost my nerd points because I'm not a Spider-Man fan.
All right, whatever. It doesn't really matter.
I don't like my heroes to cry constantly.
True that. And I'll admit I haven't read current Spider-Man in like fucking forever, so just don't ask me how I feel about Spider Island or any of that shit because I haven't read it.
I have a Spider-Man comic book that I got when I was like 8. It's the very first comic book I ever owned.
I mean, I'm familiar with early 2000s Spider-Man and early Spider-Man, and that's about all I'm comfortably familiar with.
All right. Well, I feel like we've really gotten into the trilogy, and I feel like we should start to wrap up on it a little bit. So let's start to do final thoughts, Bill.
Surely. So Ian, I do have to agree with you on one of the first things you said in this video. If nostalgia was a tangible object, I would need several of those public storage areas to contain it for the first Spider-Man movie. Because I vividly remember the first time I saw it and the impact it had on me. The only superhero I liked before Spider-Man was Batman. And it didn't get me into comics because Batman was never something that I inherently connected with comics. I don't know why, but I just never did. Spider-Man got me into comics. Looking back on them now, they are far, far from masterpieces. The second film is a great movie. It's just not a masterpiece. I do think it's a great movie, though. And overall, they are questionable in their means of adaptation. Here's why I think you should watch them. They're a crap load of fun. Especially the first two. And Spider-Man 3 has its moments. So, while I do think that The Amazing Spider-Man is closer to the comics and a maybe more intricate, well, not intricate, but more you can take it more seriously film, I do think you'd be remiss not to check out the original Raimi films because they're a lot of fun. And they're very defining for the superhero genre and what it was before The Dark Knight was released. So, I think that you should definitely check them out. And my nostalgia definitely blinds me. So, if there are any people younger than I am out there who their first introduction was either Spectacular Spider-Man or the Amazing Spider-Man, I'm not sure how they're going to react, but I say check them out because they're a lot of fun. So that's my overall thoughts of the trilogy. So I kind of agree with you, but I do think that you should definitely check them out because they're a lot of fun.
You know, I'm going to let that be the final thought because I don't have anything else to add to that at all. So thanks, guys. Thanks a ton for being with us this week. It was a lot of fun. Milan told me he's going to be back by next week. We'll see. I'm hoping so. I want to get the band back together. We're planning stuff to make the intro a little more polished for, our core group, and I'm liking the idea of changing it up every week. Also, I want to add music playing in the background so I can feel like NPR. So if anyone's got instrumentals that they do with their band, or, you just sit around and you like to play some smooth guitar or play an instrument, get a good recording of it, make a long play and send it to me. I will put it in the background and you can, have your music featured somewhere else. I will absolutely do that. I'd love to. But anyway, we'll be back next week, hopefully with Milan. And I don't know what we'll be discussing, but it'll be another debate video. So we'll see you guys next week. Thanks.